The warning lights on the bridge of the UEN Dakota flashed red as Captain John Bradley stared at the screen. The message had come through multiple channels, all at once, as if someone wanted to make sure humanity heard it loud and clear. "Captain, we're getting the same signal on all frequencies," his communication officer called out. "It's strange, sir. Like they're forcing their way through our systems." Bradley nodded, his jaw tight. In 20 years of commanding patrol vessels along Earth's frontier, he had never seen anything like this. The signal was strong, stronger than anything humans could produce, and it was coming from the edge of the solar system. "Put it on the main screen," he ordered. The bridge fell silent as alien symbols filled the display, followed by a mechanical voice that somehow spoke perfect English. "Beings of the third planet of this system, you are now subjects of the Zephyrian Empire. You have 48 standard cycles to prepare for integration. Resistance will result in the complete destruction of your world." The message repeated 3 times before the signal cut out. Lieutenant Nancy Miller, his science officer, turned to face him. "Sir, the linguistic analysis shows they've been monitoring our communications for years. They know our language, our technology levels, everything." Bradley felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. The Zephyrian Empire. They had heard whispers about them from deep space probes, stories of massive fleets that conquered world after world. But whispers were all they were supposed to be. "Get me Admiral Clark immediately," he said, "and start recording everything. I want every detail of this transmission sent to Earth Defense Command." Within minutes, the face of Admiral Lisa Clark appeared on his screen. Even through the digital connection, Bradley could see the strain in her eyes. She had received the same message. "Captain Bradley, I'm ordering all patrol vessels to return to Earth immediately," she said without greeting. "This is not a drill. The Zephyrians have made their intentions clear, and we need every ship we have." "Admiral, what do we know about them?" Bradley asked. "Too little and too much at the same time," Clark replied grimly. "Our deep space observation posts have been tracking their movements for months. They've conquered at least 12 systems in the last year alone. They're not interested in negotiation or treaties. They show up, demand surrender, and destroy anyone who resists." Bradley looked around his bridge crew. Young faces, most of them had never seen real combat. The Dakota was not a warship, just a patrol vessel with light armament. But it was all they had out here. "How many ships do we have, Admiral?" 67 combat-capable vessels, including patrol craft like yours. Against what our sensors detect coming toward us." She paused, looking away for a moment. "They have at least 200 ships, Captain. Capital ships, battle cruisers, destroyers. The works." The bridge went quiet again. 200 to 67. Those were not fighting odds. "What are our orders, ma'am?" "Come home, Captain. We're not running and we're not surrendering, but we need to prepare." The connection ended. Bradley turned to his crew. "You heard the Admiral. Plot a course for Earth, maximum speed." As the Dakota turned toward home, Bradley found himself thinking about his family. His wife Kate, his daughter Amy. They lived in New York, safely on the surface, unaware that an alien empire had just threatened to destroy everything they knew. "Sir?" Lieutenant Miller spoke up again. "I've been analyzing the Zephyrian transmission. There's something odd about it." "What do you mean?" "The content, sir. Most conquest announcements from historical Earth examples included terms, conditions, maybe some propaganda about the benefits of joining the conquering side. This message is different. It's more like a military target confirmation." Bradley nodded slowly. "They've already decided Earth is going to resist, haven't they?" "It seems that way, sir. They're not really offering us a choice. They're telling us what's going to happen." The captain walked to the observation window, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, a massive fleet was moving toward Earth. Ships filled with alien soldiers, weapons that could break worlds, commanders who had never known defeat. "Sir," the helm officer called out, "we're receiving distress calls from the outer colonies. The Zephyrians are not waiting for their deadline. They're attacking mining operations in the asteroid belt." Bradley's hands clenched into fists. This was it. Not the first contact humanity had dreamed about. Not peaceful exploration or cultural exchange. This was an invasion force, and Earth had 48 hours to prepare for the fight of its existence. "Open." A channel to all human vessels in the system, he ordered. Tell them to fall back to Earth immediately. Anyone who can fly and shoot, we need them. As his communication officer sent out the signal, Bradley thought about Dr. Peter Wong's report from last year. The doctor had spent months studying patterns of civilizations that had fallen to the Zephyrians. The key to their success was simple: shock and awe. Hit fast, hit hard, and break the will to fight before any organized resistance could form. But Earth was not like the other worlds. Humans had been preparing for this day since they first looked up at the stars and wondered what else was out there. Not because they wanted war, but because they knew that in a vast universe not everything would be friendly. Course laid in, Captain, the helm officer reported. ETA to Earth, 18 hours. Make it 15, Bradley replied. We have a war to get ready for. The stars ahead grew larger as the Dakota accelerated toward home, carrying news that would change humanity forever. The Zephyrian Empire had offered a choice that was not really a choice. But they had made one critical mistake. They had given humans time to prepare. The Zephyrian fleet appeared in Earth's solar system like a dark storm cloud, their ships massive and threatening against the starfield. On the bridge of the UEN Montana, Captain Sarah Hayes watched the tactical display fill with red dots. Captain, we're counting 197 enemy vessels, her tactical officer reported. They're maintaining formation just beyond the asteroid belt. Hayes nodded, her green eyes calm despite the magnitude of what they faced. Around Earth, 67 human warships had taken defensive positions. Not enough to match the enemy's numbers, but every ship Earth could put into space. Open a channel to the Zephyrian command vessel, she ordered. Let's see what they have to say. The main screen flickered to life, showing a creature that looked like it had been carved from stone. War Commander Zelthara's forearms moved in what might have been a gesture of superiority. Its voice rumbled through the bridge speakers. You have exceeded your time limit, primitive ones. We granted mercy, and you have chosen destruction. Hayes leaned forward in her command chair. This is Captain Sarah Hayes of the United Earth Navy. We didn't choose destruction. We chose to defend our home. That's different. The Zephyrian's head tilted. Your defiance is noted, as is your ignorance. You face the might of an empire that spans 43 star systems. Your small force cannot hope to stand against us. We'll see about that, Hayes replied calmly. Your empire has a perfect record of conquest, 43 straight wins. But here's the thing about perfect records. They have to end sometime. Behind her, she heard someone suppress a gasp. Nobody spoke to a Zephyrian commander like that and lived. You are brave for primitives, Zelthara admitted. It will make your defeat more satisfying. Observe your future. The screen changed to show devastating images. Worlds burning, cities reduced to rubble, orbital stations torn apart by Zephyrian weapons. Each image was marked with a timestamp and coordinates, proof of real destruction. See how you're kind? Submit, Zelthara continued. These worlds learned, as you will learn, that resistance brings only death. The bridge crew looked shaken by the images, but Hayes kept her expression steady. Commander, we've already seen your propaganda videos. What interests us more are the fleet movement patterns in those recordings. The Zephyrian's massive frame straightened. What did you say? Your attack formation on Kresh Prime. The rotation, pattern your battlecruisers used at Vela 7. The power distribution sequence during your bombardment of Titan Colony. Hayes smiled. We've been studying your victories, Commander. Every single one. The alien's forearms moved in what could only be anger. That is impossible. Human deep space observation networks are more advanced than you assumed, she continued. We've been watching your empire expand for 2 years, learning your tactics, understanding your weaknesses. Her tactical officer turned to her with wide eyes. Captain, they're powering weapons. All ships, this is Montana Actual, Hayes broadcast, on the fleet channel. Execute pattern Delta 7, show them what we've learned. The human fleet suddenly broke apart, ships scattering in seemingly random directions. But there was nothing random about it. Each vessel moved with precision, creating a web of crossing trajectories that forced the Zephyrian formation to divide. It's fire. You cannot adapt fast enough, Zelthera roared. We have conquered 43 worlds. And none of them had orbital defense satellites programmed with your tactical database. Hayes shot back. Light them up. From Earth's space. From the moon. From hidden positions throughout the system, automated defense platforms opened fire. The weapons had been positioned and programmed based on human analysis of Zephyrian combat tactics. The enemy's first barrage met unexpected resistance. Human ships performed maneuvers that seemed impossible, turns too tight, accelerations too sudden. But they worked because humans had studied how Zephyrians predicted movement patterns. Lieutenant Jake Cooper, Hayes' science officer, watched his screens in amazement. Captain, their targeting computers can't lock onto us. They're programmed for how other species fly, not human tactics. Good, Hayes replied. All ships, maintain evasive pattern gamma. Keep them guessing. The space between Earth and the asteroid belt erupted in light and energy. Zephyrian weapons scored hits, but human shields absorbed much of the damage. Meanwhile, Earth's counterattack focused on specific points, weaknesses identified from studying conquest footage. Commander Zelthara, Hayes called out during a brief pause in the fighting. Your empire's biggest strength was also your biggest mistake. Explain yourself, primitive. You documented every conquest, every victory. You wanted the galaxy to fear you, so you preserved these records. But when you sent your ultimatum to Earth, you also sent us your complete tactical database by accident. Military frequencies bleeding into diplomatic channels. Very sloppy. The Zephyrian command bridge erupted in angry roars. Impossible! We spent 48 hours analyzing 2 years of your battle footage. Every maneuver, every weapon signature, every command sequence. Our AI systems built prediction models based on your own victories. Hayes allowed herself a small smile. You taught us how to beat you. The Montana shook as Zephyrian weapons found their mark, but the ship held together. Around them, the battle continued with an intensity that surprised both sides. Humans were not fighting like the species Zephyrians had conquered before. Captain, her tactical officer called out. Enemy fleet is reorganizing, they're adapting to our evasive patterns. Then we adapt too, Hayes replied. All ships, switch to manual control. No more computer predictions. Time to show them what humans do best, improvise. As the battle raged on, one fact became clear to both sides. This would not be like the Zephyrians' previous conquests. Earth was not surrendering, not running. For the first time in their empire's history, the Zephyrians faced an enemy that had been prepared, that had studied them, that would not break. War Commander Zelthera stared at the tactical display, watching. Ships move in patterns its computers couldn't predict. These primitives had done something no other species had managed. They had learned from the Zephyrian Empire's own victories how to fight back. All vessels, the commander broadcast to its fleet, increase power to forward shields. These humans are more dangerous than anticipated. The battle for Earth's survival had truly begun. The asteroid belt became a maze of destruction and death. Commander Rick Torres guided his squadron of fighters through the debris, weaving between chunks of rock that used to be mining stations before the Zephyrians destroyed them. Shadow Squadron, form up on me, he called over the fighter channel. We're going hunting. 12 small human fighters followed him into the belt. They looked tiny compared to the massive Zephyrian battle cruisers, but Torres had a plan. Your enemy ships were huge and powerful, but that also made them slow and predictable. Remember your training, he told his pilots. Hit and run. Use the asteroids for cover. Don't try to stand and fight. His wingman, Lieutenant Betty Ford, checked her weapons. Commander, I'm reading 2 Zephyrian cruisers at grid 7 Gamma. They're scanning the belt, looking for our ambush points. Perfect. Torres smiled behind his helmet. Let's give them what they're looking for. The fighters spread out, using the asteroids like an obstacle course. Torres had spent weeks studying Zephyrian ship design from the records Earth had captured. Their shields were strong in front, weaker on the sides. Their weapons couldn't target small, fast objects effectively, and their sensors had trouble with metallic asteroids. Ghost leader to Shadow Squadron, Torres announced. Execute asteroid dance. By the numbers. The 12 fighters split into groups of 3, each taking a different approach to the 2 battle cruisers. Torres led his team straight at the first cruiser, using a spinning asteroid the size of a building for cover. Target acquired, Ford reported. Shields are up, weapons charging. Wait for it, Torres said calmly. Let them see us. The massive Zephyrian ship swung its weapon arrays toward the small fighters. Energy beams cut through space, vaporizing asteroids but always a few seconds behind the human ships. Now, Torres shouted. Break and attack. His 3 fighters split apart, diving under and over the cruiser. At the last moment, they fired everything they had at the ship's side shields. Missiles, energy weapons, and mass drivers all hit the same spot on the enemy vessel. The shield flared and died in that section. Immediately, the second group of fighters came in from the opposite side, hitting the same weakness. Then the third group finished the attack run. The battlecruiser's side armor buckled and tore open. Atmosphere and debris vented into space as the massive ship started to list. One down, Torres called out. Reform and hit the second target. But the second Zephyrian cruiser had learned from watching the first attack. Its captain had rotated the ship to present its strongest shields to the incoming fighters. Commander, they're adapting, Ford warned. We can't use the same tactic twice, Torres thought quickly. This was what humans did best, adapt in the moment. Change of plans. Alpha group, go high. Beta group, go low. Charlie group, hit them. From behind. Make them choose which way to face. The fighters scattered again, coming at the cruiser from 3 directions at once. The enemy ship pivoted, trying to track all 3 groups with its weapons, but it couldn't cover every angle. Go, 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 Torres ordered. The attack hit like lightning. 3 groups of fighters struck the cruiser simultaneously, overwhelming its defensive fire. Energy blasts carved deep into the ship's armor. One missile found an engine exhaust port and detonated inside. The second battlecruiser shuddered and began to drift, its power failing. Back on Earth, General Amy Phillips watched the tactical display from the orbital command center. The asteroid belt was alive with small unit actions like Torres's squadron. Everywhere, human fighters and lightships were using guerrilla tactics against the larger Zephyrian forces. Status report, she ordered her aide. 16 enemy capital ships disabled, or destroyed in the belt, ma'am. We've lost 9 fighters and 2 frigates. The Zephyrians are pulling back to regroup. Phillips nodded. The plan was working, but barely. What about coordination with the space fleet? Captain Bob Davis, her tactical coordinator, brought up a new display. Admiral Clark reports full integration between ground-based systems and space forces. We're sharing targeting data in real time. When our fighters identify enemy weak points, the heavy ships capitalize immediately. And the Zephyrians? They're confused, General. They're used to fighting each species' forces separately. They keep treating our ground, orbital, and space units as different entities. But we're operating as one force. Across the system, Chief Engineer Mike Nelson worked frantically on the UAN Arizona. His team was making modifications in mid-battle, something the Zephyrians had never encountered. Reroute power from the secondary systems, he ordered his crew. I want everything we can spare going to shields and weapons. His assistant, Jenny Parker, pointed to the ship's schematics. Chief, we're seeing shield harmonics from the enemy weapons. If we adjust our shield frequency, we can deflect more damage. Do it, Nelson said without hesitation. And send the adjustment to all ships immediately. This was the essence of human warfare. Constant adaptation. Where other species relied on predetermined tactics and rigid command structures, humans improvised. They shared discoveries instantly. They modified equipment in real time. They adapted faster than any enemy could predict. The Arizona shook as a Zephyrian destroyer concentrated fire on it. But the new shield adjustments held, deflecting most of the energy. Return fire, Nelson called to the bridge. Target there, power distribution nodes, same weak points Torres found on the cruisers. The Arizona's weapons carved into the destroyer, hitting specific targets identified by the fighter attacks. Other human ships joined in, all focusing fire on the same weakness. "It's working!" someone shouted. "The destroyer's losing power!" Back in the asteroid belt, Torres watched the tactical display as more human units scored victories. Small, coordinated. Attacks were dismantling the Zephyrian fleet piece by piece. "Shadow Squadron, form up for another run," he ordered. "We're not done yet." But as his fighters gathered, he noticed something on his sensors. The Zephyrian fleet was changing formation, pulling back toward the outer system. "They're retreating," Ford said with surprise. "No," Torres corrected. "They're regrouping, getting ready to try something new." He was right. War Commander Zelthara had never faced an enemy that fought like humans. Every calculation, every prediction his forces had made was wrong. The humans fought as a single, coordinated unit. They adapted constantly. They used their weaknesses as strengths. "All vessels," Zelthara broadcast to the Zephyrian fleet. "Fall, back to Rally Point Delta. We must reconsider our approach to these primitives." For the first time in the Empire's history, a Zephyrian fleet was retreating, not defeated, but forced to acknowledge that the enemy was more dangerous than expected. The battle for Earth was far from over, but something had changed. Humans had proven they could fight, adapt, and coordinate in ways the Empire had never encountered. The Iron Response had begun. The battle had reached Earth's orbital space. Massive Zephyrian ships, frustrated by their losses in the asteroid belt, now pushed closer to the planet. Captain Kevin Brown stood on the bridge of the UEN Nevada, watching enemy forces approach. "They're angry now," his first officer commented, studying the tactical display. "Look at how they're bunching up, throwing caution to the wind." Brown nodded. "That's exactly what Admiral Clark predicted. When the Zephyrians face unexpected resistance, they abandon strategy and rely on brute force." The Nevada was positioned with 30 other human ships in a defensive sphere around Earth. Every vessel was smaller than the Zephyrian battle cruisers, but they moved with precise coordination. "Sir, Dr. Janet Williams is requesting a direct channel," the communications officer announced. "Put her through," Brown ordered. Dr. Williams' face appeared on the screen. She was the lead scientist working with Earth's military AI systems, and she had been coordinating with the fleet throughout the battle. "Captain Brown, we've identified a critical pattern in Zephyrian command structure," she said quickly. "Their fleet decisions are made by their central command AI, not individual captains. It's incredibly powerful, but also rigid." "What does that mean for us, Doctor?" "It means they can't adapt to chaos. Their AI analyzes situations and picks the optimal solution based on their database of successful conquests, but we can overwhelm it with unpredictable actions." Brown felt a surge of hope. "What do you need us to do?" "Make no sense. Every ship needs to act independently. Forget standard formations. Forget coordinated attacks. I want pure chaos for the next 10 minutes. The captain looked around his bridge crew. This went against everything they had trained for, but Williams knew what she was talking about. "All ships, this is Nevada Actual," he broadcast. "Execute chaos protocol. Individual actions only. No patterns, no coordination. Surprise them." The human fleet suddenly exploded into random movement. Ships dove, turned, accelerated in completely unpredictable ways. Weapons fire seemed to follow no pattern at all. On the Zephyrian command vessel, War Commander Zelthara watched in confusion as its tactical computers tried to process the human movements. "Tactical analysis," it demanded, unable to determine pattern. The computer responded. "Human vessels are acting without coordination, no strategic purpose detected." "That is impossible. All military actions have purpose." But the chaos continued. Human ships moved like leaves in a storm, never where the Zephyrian computers predicted. The enemy's superior weapons couldn't target effectively when every ship behaved differently. Meanwhile, Dr. Williams worked with the military AI aboard the command station. "Are you seeing this?" she asked the AI. "The Zephyrian targeting systems are falling behind." "Confirmed," the AI responded. "Enemy fire accuracy has dropped by 47%. Their predictive algorithms cannot process random behavior." "Perfect. Now let's add the next layer." Williams initiated a program she had coded specifically for this moment. Across the human fleet, every ship received new instructions, not orders, but suggestions. Each vessel's AI would pick the most unpredictable action from a list of possibilities. The effect was immediate. Human ships began performing maneuvers that defied tactical logic. One destroyer suddenly stopped mid-battle and spun in place. Another fired all its weapons straight up. A third ship flew directly at a Zephyrian battlecruiser, fired its entire missile load, then turned away at the last possible second. "This is madness!" Silthera roared on the enemy command bridge. "Their actions make no tactical sense." "Agreed," the computer confirmed. "However, their unpredictability is preventing optimal targeting solutions." The human fleet, guided by controlled chaos, began to break the Zephyrian formation. Every enemy ship had to defend against threats from unexpected directions. Their command structure, designed for efficient logical warfare, couldn't keep up. Captain Brown watched his tactical display with growing satisfaction. Williams was right. "They can't handle us when we stop making sense." "Captain," his weapons officer called out, "the enemy flagship has exposed its ventral shields during an evasive maneuver. We have a clear shot." "Negative," Brown replied, confusing his crew. "Fire at that asteroid instead." "Sir?" "Trust me. Keep them guessing." The Nevada's weapons obliterated an empty piece of space rock. The action made no tactical sense, but it continued the pattern of unpredictability. Then suddenly, the chaos ended. As if connected by an invisible signal, all human ships snapped back into tight formation. "Now," Admiral Clark's voice broadcast, "to all vessels. Execute convergent strike." 30 human warships moved as one, diving toward the Zephyrian flagship. The enemy command vessel, still processing the previous 10 minutes of chaos, suddenly faced coordinated attack it couldn't predict. "All weapons, fire," Brown ordered. The combined firepower of the human fleet struck the flagship's weakened shields. Energy beams, missiles, and kinetic projectiles all hit the same target with perfect timing. Aboard the Zephyrian command vessel, emergency alarms screamed. Major systems failed. Hull breaches vented atmosphere and crew into space. "Retreat," Silthera commanded its fleet. "All vessels fall back, we must regroup." But the human fleet was already moving to the next target. Another battlecruiser, caught off guard by the sudden shift from chaos to coordination, took massive damage before it could react. Dr. Williams smiled as she watched her plan succeed. "The beauty of the human mind," she said to her AI. "We can be completely random one moment and perfectly logical the next. Their computers can't handle that level of flexibility." "Confirmed," the AI agreed. "Zephyrian tactical systems are designed for predictable opponents. Human cognitive patterns exceed their processing models." The tide of battle had turned decisively. Zephyrian ships, once confident in their superior numbers and firepower, now fled from an enemy they couldn't understand or predict. Captain Brown watched the enemy retreat and allowed himself a small smile. "All ships maintain formation, but be ready to go crazy again if they come back." The battle for Earth continued, but something fundamental had changed. Humanity had discovered that their greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their numbers. It was their uniquely human ability to be both chaotic and organized, random and precise, often in the same moment. War Commander Zelthara, nursing a damaged flagship, realized the terrible truth. These humans were not like any species the Empire had conquered. They fought by rules that no computer could predict, adapted faster than any database could track, and used their own unpredictability as a weapon. For the first time in its career, the commander faced an enemy that might actually win. The final battle began as the sun rose over Earth. War Commander Zelthara's flagship limped through space, its hull scarred from human attacks. Around it, the remaining Zephyrian forces gathered for one last assault. "This is our final push," Zelthara announced to its fleet. "The primitives have fought better than expected, but numbers will decide this battle. All vessels, focus maximum firepower on the planet's northern hemisphere." But as the Zephyrian fleet advanced, they met a wall of human ships. Every remaining vessel, from massive battleships to tiny fighters, had formed a defensive line around Earth. Captain Steve Johnson commanded the UEN California, positioned at the center of the line. He had lost count of the hours they had been fighting, but he knew this was the moment everything had led to. All ships, maintain formation, he broadcast to the fleet. This is where we make our stand. Admiral Lisa Clark, aboard her command, vessel, watched the tactical display. The numbers still favored the Zephyrians, but barely. Both sides had taken heavy losses. Captain Johnson, she called over the command channel, you have tactical control of the engagement. Make them remember. This day, Johnson nodded, though she couldn't see him. The California had suffered significant damage, but its weapons were still functional. More importantly, its crew was ready. Commander Chris Patel, prepare to transmit our terms, Johnson ordered his communications officer. Terms, sir. The Zephyrians are about to learn something important about humanity. As the enemy fleet closed distance, Johnson opened a channel to the Zephyrian flagship. War Commander Zelthera, this is Captain Steve Johnson of the United Earth Navy. We offer you terms. The response came quickly. You are in no position to offer terms, primitive. Surrender now or be destroyed. That's not how this works, Johnson replied calmly. You attacked our home. You threatened our people. You assumed we would be easy prey. But here's what happens next. You retreat now, with whatever ships you have left. You return to your empire, and tell them that Earth is not for conquest. The bridge fell silent. Even Johnson's crew stared at him in surprise. You dare? Zelthera's voice roared through the speakers. The Zephyrian Empire does not retreat. Then you're about to start a new tradition, Johnson said, because retreating is your only other option. What you call option, we call extinction. Wrong again, Johnson smiled. What you're seeing is victory, not a conquest, not an occupation, just survival. And that's all Earth ever wanted. The Zephyrian fleet opened fire, but the human ships were ready. Every vessel moved with practiced precision, shields coordinated, weapons targeting predetermined weak points. The battle was fierce but brief. Human forces, fighting to protect their home, moved with desperate coordination. The Zephyrians, exhausted and confused by human tactics, struggled to maintain their assault. Then something remarkable happened. The UN Nebraska, heavily damaged and drifting, suddenly fired its engines and rammed directly into a Zephyrian battlecruiser. The explosion lit up space. For Earth, the Nebraska's captain had broadcast in his final moments. The act galvanized the human fleet. Ships pushed harder, fired faster, moved with renewed energy. Captain Johnson watched as the tide finally turned completely. All ships target the flagship, he ordered. End this now. Every human weapon in range focused on Zelthera's vessel. The combined firepower knocked out the last of its shields and carved deep into its hull. War Commander, Johnson broadcast on the open channel. You have a choice. Order your fleet to withdraw, or we continue this until there's nothing left of your forces. For long moments, silence hung over the battlefield. Then Zelthera's voice returned. Different now. Defeated. All Zephyrian vessels. Retreat. Fall. Back to the outer system. The surviving enemy ships, less than half their original number, turned and began to withdraw. Human ships held their positions, weapons still charged but no longer firing. Admiral Clark's voice came over the fleet channel. All vessels, maintain defensive formation. Let them go, but stay ready. Captain Johnson watched the Zephyrian fleet retreat on his tactical display. Around him, his crew began to realize what had happened. Sir, his first officer said quietly, we won. Yes, Johnson nodded. We did. Hours later, when the last Zephyrian ship had passed the edge of the solar system, Johnson met with Admiral Clark in the command center. Final casualty report, Admiral? Clark looked tired but satisfied. 28 ships lost, 14 severely damaged. Personnel casualties are still being tallied, but preliminary numbers suggest we lost about 3,000 people. And them? Best? Estimates put it at 112 ships destroyed or disabled out of their initial 197. They won't soon forget Earth. Johnson sat down heavily. What now? Now we rebuild, Clark said, and we prepare, because they'll be back eventually. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next year, but empires like that don't forget defeats easily. Will anyone believe what happened here? Johnson asked. That Earth stood alone against an empire and won? Clark smiled. They will when the Zephyrians return home, when they have to explain to their emperor how they lost for the first time ever, when other species hear that the empire can be beaten. She walked to the observation window, looking out at Earth. We weren't trying to conquer anyone. We weren't trying to expand our territory or build an empire. We just wanted to be left alone, and when they wouldn't let us, we showed them what happens when you threaten humanity's home. Johnson joined her at the window. No flags raised in victory, no territories claimed, just defense. Exactly. We answered their threats the only way they would understand, with strength, with determination, with unity. Clark paused. And with the one thing their empire never expected, the simple human refusal to give up. Below them, Earth turned peacefully in space, protected not by grand declarations or diplomatic negotiations, but by the men and women who had stood between their world and destruction. In the weeks that followed, sensors detected the Zephyrian fleet retreating toward the Galactic Rim. The Empire's first defeat would echo across the stars, changing the galaxy's power balance forever. Captain Johnson's final log entry became part of military history. Today, humanity proved that when you threaten Earth, we don't send diplomats or philosophers. We don't wave flags or make speeches. We send warships and warriors who know the only acceptable response to a threat against our home is victory. The Zephyrian Empire had offered Earth a choice that wasn't really a choice. In response, humanity had chosen to fight, adapt, and win. The stars themselves seemed to take notice that day when human warships answered the call to defend their world.